So how is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022's multiplayer, and does it live up to the hype of the original Modern Warfare 2 2009 multiplayer? Does it also live up to 2019? Because a lot of people seem to love Modern Warfare 2019, but they also had a lot of problems with it at the same time. So I was actually not going to do this sort of multiplayer review until after Season 1, but I thought, you know what, we could always review seasons. How was this game right out of the gate at launch? And that's kind of what I want to review, because the problem is, if I was to wait to review it until Season 1, then that's kind of indicative in and of itself that the game is unfinished, right, in its current state. And that's kind of the problem, is in a way it is unfinished. There is a lot missing at launch. Now, the thing that makes this review kind of difficult is the fact that, on one hand, I feel like what I've been saying a lot in my videos is that there's a lot of potential for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer. There's a core experience, there's a core there that I think they could vastly improve upon, and they could vastly just better as a whole. But there's a lot of issues right out of the gate at launch. So this is going to be my multiplayer review as of launch. Okay, this is the launch review. And if I was to sum it up in one word, if I could just one and done, my one word would be pre-launch. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to explain that. And on the other hand, does it have enough going for it out of the gate that with the seasonal updates, especially with Season 1, that there's going to be enough to kind of keep it going, especially for 2 years, because keep in mind, they're skipping a release next year in 2023. So we got to live off this game for 2 years now. Now, I will say this, compared to last year, I think it is way, way, way better than Vanguard ever was. Vanguard had a lot wrong with it right out of the gate. It wasn't the greatest experience overall. There was fun to be had for, a lot of Call of Duty players, but for me personally, I just felt like it fell flat on its face, and even the sales were indicative of that. It was 44% down sales. Now, I do want to give you guys a quick backstory preface. Not going to take too long, just to give you guys an idea how long I've been around with this series, and so you know what kind of person you're listening to kind of give this review. I've been playing Call of Duty since the very start. I started with Call of Duty 4, the original Modern Warfare. I may have dabbled with, COD 3 a little bit before that, but COD 4 is really where I kind of jumped in. And MW2 is when I really, really, really got into the franchise, like heavy. Like I played a lot of COD 4, but I was still being pulled away from COD to Halo 3. Halo 3 was my main FPS game back in the day. But I still played a lot of COD 4. MW2, loved it. To me, I think like MW2 and Black Ops 2 are the pinnacle of Modern Warfare, of Call of Duty as a whole. I think those are the two best games. Also probably throw in the first Black Ops as well. I think those are probably the three best games. Black Ops 3, even with the advanced movement system, I still think it's one of the best CODs out there as well. The multiplayer experience was really solid. The zombies was incredible in and of itself as well. The only COD I think I ended up missing was World at War. I ended up missing that one COD, but besides that, I've played them all. And I've had a mixed kind of amount of feelings the past few years. Vanguard was the first time where I really kind of just barely played the game. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a baseline, a little bit of an idea. Now, with Modern Warfare 2, the new one, 2022, when the beta came out, obviously there was some issues that, needed to be addressed. And one of the things was skill-based matchmaking. And I made a whole video on that in and of itself. But skill-based matchmaking has been a problem for a long time in Call of Duty and just in FPS games in general. But that said, I think that they've tuned the skill-based matchmaking, at least from the beta, enough where there's a good amount of differences and a good amount of changes in the game where it's a lot more enjoyable than it was. It's a lot closer, I think, to like Black Ops Cold War, how that game felt for me in terms of skill-based matchmaking. And again, that game, you had some sweaty matches, but it wasn't as bad as other games, where, I think like Vanguard was pretty bad. Again, Black Ops Cold War, it wasn't ideal either, but I think they've tuned it enough so far where it's a good start, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done with skill-based matchmaking. In terms of everything else, where you're coming out of the gate with, it's a little bit clunky. I mean, people have been having some bugs, some technical issues, different things like that. You can't even ping, you know, enemy locations if you're on console because there's bugs with that. It feels like it just wasn't ready to come out yet. And there's also hardcore that's not even there until season 1. So again, if we're talking, you know, right out of the gate, it feels like an unfinished game. And that's what everybody keeps saying. It feels unfinished. It feels very pre-launch. I don't feel like this is like a launch. I'm hoping that season 1 feels more of a multiplayer launch than this, but this feels like it's very pre-launch, and that's what I was explaining earlier. Now, in terms of like the weapons and the, you know, the streaks and everything like that, there's a lot of great stuff. Obviously, you know, classic streaks returning, UAV, you know, counter UAVs, care packages, everything like that. You know, you got your cruise missiles and your VTOLs, which are basically like a Harrier, your Overwatch Helo, which is kind of like a Pavlo. Your chopper gunners, you know, your gunships, juggernauts, advanced UAVs, you know, etc., etc. It's pretty good. You can also switch between whether they are score streaks or kill streaks. So you could either do it by kill. So for example, UAVs would be 4 kills, or if you switch it to score streaks, UAVs would be 500 points. Now, if you play a lot of objective games, obviously that's going to be, you know, something that you may want to just turn it into score streaks instead of kill streaks, because then in that case, you'll probably be getting your streaks a lot faster. So having that option is really, really nice. Now, in terms of the weaponry, again, I just want to preface this to tell you guys exactly how long I've been playing before, you know, I actually made this review. Because I wanted to make the review earlier and I kept putting it off. I'm like, I really want to put as much time as possible. There's no combat record or barracks, which again is another huge thing missing from the game that makes it feel unfinished. So I can't tell you exactly how long I've played, but that's another thing that is worth noting. But in terms of everything else, so I've gotten all gold camos for my ARs, my battle rifles. I've done about just over half of my SMGs. I've basically done over 20 weapons gold, and I've gotten a bunch of other experience with a bunch of different weapons as well. So I've been playing a lot and I've gotten hands-on with the majority of the weaponry in the game. I've tried a lot of different perks. I've tried a lot of different stuff. Now, maybe not every single combination, obviously. There's a lot, and is one thing that's kind of going for it, but also something that's hindering it is the Gunsmith. The new Gunsmith is very, very, very deep, to the point where you can tune almost any single attachment. So you can tune, and again, I made a whole video on this as well, so I'm not gonna go in depth with it, but you can tune like your for example, your stock or whatever, and you can tune like the weight, and you can tune like just so many different things about each attachment that really kind of customizes it to the minute detail. And so in that sense, there's a lot going for it where, you know, you can really get crazy with it, but at the same time, that can feel overwhelming for a lot of players. Now, that said, I've, you know, also been primarily playing without attachments at all. And, you know, I've been doing fine without attachments. So it's not something like you need to understand all this. So it's kind of nice that they give you the option to kind of mess with these kind of, like I said, minute details. It's very, very, you know, nuanced, if you will. But it's nice that you don't have to do it either, right? So I think it's good in that sense. Now with camos, I kind of like the way they're going about it. So there's kind of like each gun has like 4 camos, right? So you got to level up your gun to so many different levels, and each level unlocks a different challenge for 4 different camos. And then as you complete those challenges, you get these camos unlocked, and those 4 camos, they're then unlocked for all the other weapons as well. So you have your camo collection. There's 186 camos. I have currently unlocked 79. And those ones, again, there's 4 per gun. And once you unlock them, they're unlocked for all the weapons. Then after that, you unlock a gold challenge for that gun. And then completing the gold challenge unlocks you the gold weapon. And once you get all gold challenges complete for all the different, weapons within a category, like all ARs, then you unlock the platinum challenge, which is another challenge for each gun. Once you've done all the platinum for, every single weapon, there's going to be 51 platinum challenges. Then you'll unlock the polyatomic challenge, and it's kind of like a static dark matter looking kind of camo. But once you do all of that, then you complete 51 polyatomic camo challenges, you'll unlock the ultimate camo, which is Orion. So there's a lot to kind of grind for in terms of weapon camos. And like I said, there's a lot in terms of the Gunsmith. Now, one of the other things people don't like about the Gunsmith is the fact that certain attachments for certain guns have to be unlocked by ranking up other guns, because there's a lot of attachments that are kind of interchangeable between different weapons. So there's certain attachments that you might need for the AR that you unlock by leveling up an LMG, for example, and different stuff like that. So in that case, it can get very, very confusing more than anything. And I'm not sure that was the best route, because again, I see a lot of people complaining about that. And I think that hinders the kind of experience more than anything. Beyond that, again, you got your classic tacticals and lethals and everything like that, you know, your perk packages. Now there is a new kind of perk system, and again, I explained that whole thing in another video. I'll just link a playlist down below if you want the details of each of these subcategories. But basically the way that these new perk packages work is you start off a game with 2 perks. And so you set 4 perks in total, right? So you start the game with 2, and as the game progresses, depending how you play, if you play very well, then you're going to progress faster and you'll unlock a bonus perk. And then eventually you're going to unlock your ultimate perk. So they kind of locked certain bigger perks like Ghost, for example, under the ultimate perk. So those kind of get unlocked towards the end of a match. Now, once they're unlocked in that match, they're unlocked for the entire match. But when you play a new match, it's, you know, resets the cycle, right? And in a way that I feel like that's kind of a nice change, but at the same time, it's a change that's going to take some getting used to. It's nice in a way because, again, it makes you think about the game entirely different in the first half compared to the second half. Because in the first half, you know that people don't have their bonus perks or their ultimate perks. But by the second half, you know that, you know, depending on how people are playing, they probably, you know, getting pretty close to having those perks. And so something like, you know, Ghost, where, you know, one person showed up on a UAV in the beginning of the game, while they may not show up in the second half of the game because now they've unlocked their ultimate perk, Ghost. So there is that. One of the things that really sucks that they didn't listen to the community about is the red dots on the minimap. So whenever you fire your weapon, no red dots on the minimap, and that's just kind of a big yikes, because again, the large majority of the community wanted them to not do that and to have red dots showing up on a minimap unless you're using a suppressor. And their whole reasoning behind it is kind of a little bit weird. So on that front, again, it's just another thing that kind of sets it back, if you will. That said, with all of these things that are just going against the game, like there's kind of a lot, right? Like I said, there's no combat record, there's no hardcore, there's very minimal camos and emblems. There is a way to see other ones that are going to be unlocked later on down the road. So there is going to be a bunch added technically to the game, but still at launch is not a lot. The new perk system is hit or miss with a lot of people. I don't mind it. I think there's pros and cons to it. You know, the weapons are pretty solid overall. Some weapons like the M16 need some tuning because they're just bad, really, really bad. You know, again, some of the streaks, you know, could I think some of the streaks are pretty. They're pretty powerful, but at the same time, some of them feel like they're not powerful enough. And the whole thing with, you know, I've always said is streaks should be more powerful. They've always been like that, you know, in classic COD, and I don't see, you know, any good in reducing that. It's part of the fun to have powerful streaks and all that. Nuke is still 30 kills. I still think that should be 25, but again, we're kind of getting into more like nitpicky kind of, you know, personal preference sort of things, and whatnot. So, you know, just keep that in mind. Overall, I mean, at launch, the other thing going against it is the leveling system. So you get 55 kind of military ranks at launch, and that unlocks, you know, all your stuff. Once it's all unlocked, you know, it's unlocked forever. But there's no progression beyond that as of launch. So the only progression beyond that is your weapon progression, leveling up your weapons. Now, there's talks of some kind of seasonal prestige system. I'm not really sure because they've been very radio silent on whether that's, you know, is that going to be more of like a Black Ops Cold War sort of thing, or more of a Modern Warfare 2019 sort of thing. If it's a Modern Warfare 2019 sort of thing, then that's a big flop in my opinion. I think that just is something that most people are not going to be happy with. A lot of people want more of a Black Ops Cold War kind of system, at least it's closer to the traditional prestige system. But again, either way, we're talking, you know, before season 1, once you hit level 55, you got nothing to do in terms of your player rank, and that's kind of that. So, you know, take that as you will. Beyond that, I mean, you know, the UI is very messy and it needs some refining. I don't know who came up with the idea of this UI, but it's not very intuitive. It's not very good. in and of itself. It's very confusing for a lot of people. It's very clunky. It's very weird. And just not good overall. Again, I think that covers kind of the basis of it. I don't want to make this video like 25 minutes long or something, but all in all, again, it's a lot more fun than I expected to have with it. Like I said, I've been playing a lot more than I had anticipated. I thought I'd be, you know, kind of over it a lot quicker, especially just because of like the recent years, and especially how I felt about Vanguard and how that just kind of let me down. But I feel like they have a really strong potential, a very good core that if they tweak the right things, if they change the right things, if they build upon the right things, then, you know, could head in the right direction. The other thing that's kind of going against it is that there's only 10 maps at launch. They already removed one for apparent copyright issues. Again, no official word, but that's kind of the idea. And there's a second one that may be removed by the time you guys see this, I don't know, which is the hotel, because again, copyright, you know, legal issues where these maps are identical to real life locations and these places are not happy with it, both the museum and the hotel. So we might have even less maps by the time you guys see this video, for all I know. I have no idea. So do keep that in mind too. You know, it's kind of a very minimal, you know, amount of maps at launch. So it's just a struggle, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of fun to be had. But there's so much going wrong with it right now at launch that honestly, as much as I want to give it a higher score, because again, I feel like it's a lot more fun than Vanguard was. I feel like it has so much potential. At the same time, we don't know. Are they going to really grasp that potential, or is there going to be a Halo Infinite situation where they just kind of lose that, you know, potential, lose that momentum and traction, and they just kind of, you know, lose that steam and they just come to a screeching halt? Time will tell, but as of right now, as of before season 1, the core experience is probably like and this might be generous, I don't know. I wanted to give it a 7, but I honestly think I'm gonna give it more of a 6.5 out of 10, just because there's so much lacking. And even a 6.5 I feel is generous. I feel like I should go as low as like 6, if not lower. But again, I feel like there is enough there that kind of makes it salvageable, but it's still really, really tough. Again, I really had a hard time giving this one a score because, you know, like I said, it's kind of, there's so much, man. There's so much factoring in. Like I said, there's so much potential, but right now there's so much missing, and that's really going against it. So let's hope that they can really kind of pull back from this and make something out of it. But as of right now, it feels very pre-launch. It feels very unfinished, and that's just a disappointment. So we'll see what season 1 brings. If you guys want me to review seasons, I can do that as well here on the channel. Let me know either by leaving a like or a comment or whatever down below. And if you're new around here, we do a variety of gaming content. We talk about the games, we play the games here on the channel. Let's plays, walkthroughs, guides, reviews, you name it, we got it. Gaming news, everything. I love talking about the games and playing the games for you guys. So stick around for more. Let me know what you think. What would you rate the multiplayer experience so far if you've played it? I'll see you guys soon, another one. Thanks so much for watching, and until then, game on. See you guys later.